In this episode, looks like we've got a leak in the starboard fuel tank. How did this happen? What do we do? And how do we have a boating season? Stay tuned.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Well, it's been a hectic couple of weeks and a whole lot of stuff's been going on. I actually tried to do a video a week or so ago, but just couldn't make it click, you know? Things weren't working, there were a couple of technical issues, a couple of lost files. So out with the old, in with the new, and with more information that we received over the last week or so, we can put together a more comprehensive video for you this time. What we're going to talk about today is fuel in the bilge, or leaking fuel tank. Or what do you do when you have gas odors? And what we'll do is take you through the steps that we went through and also follow up with some of our activities on this long weekend so that we can get the boat ready to splash into the water as soon as possible. So it all started a couple of weeks ago. Well, you may hear dog sounds occasionally. So it started a couple of weeks after we had been on board the boat to do measuring for all the cushions. We went out for another visit, and as we were approaching the boat, we could get a gas smell. As we got on the boat, it was definitely stronger, and in the salon, stronger yet. And then finally in the aft cabin, because gas fumes tend to settle, very strong indeed. So safety first. Made sure Jacqueline was off the boat, opened up the windows for ventilation, and went into the engine room because I have fuel cocks that will allow me to direct fuel flow from either tank to either engine or the generator, and I made sure those were all switched to off. Interestingly, in the engine room, there was no gas smell. It was all really located around the aft cockpit. I went to have a look, and over by the aft bilge itself was about that much fuel, like actual fuel. Oh my, that's not good. So, got a container, drain plug, and emptied out a couple of liters of gas. And at that point, contacted the marina owners and let them know what was up. They were super responsive, as one would be, and over a period of time of trying to find out where the fuel was coming from, I also did some research online, various forums, and talking to friends who own a similar boat, and they said to check the fuel sender gasket. It's a piece that tends to dry out and crack, and what might have happened is with gas expansion in the warmer weather, and if the full fuel tanks were fairly full, then that could force it out and force out some fuel, causing the smell and causing the leak. Sadly, that wasn't the case. The marina owner mechanic had called me to say, oh, about 90% sure that it is in fact the starboard fuel tank that has a leak. Now he was able to go in, reach, and found that over by one of the gaskets, the rubber gaskets holding up the tank itself, it was saturated and it was all very wet down around that side of the fuel tank. Again, that's not very good. So knowing that, there were a couple of next steps. One is to drain the fuel tank, and secondly, to do a pressure test on the tank itself at 3 psi, just to make sure that that in fact is the issue and that it's not hoses or the sender gasket. There are a couple of ways to fix the gas tank. Well, not fix it, replace it. One is to go into the salon, take out the starboard engine, put it over, go in, remove the fuel tank, and put in the replacement, then replace the engine. The other option is to actually cut a hole into the side of the boat and replace the fuel tank from there, and then glass it over later. Both of those are expensive. really expensive. And more importantly, or as importantly, really, what does that mean for us having a boating season? Right now, the focus for everybody is to put boats in the water. So a lengthy, time-consuming, expensive project like ours would probably sit on the back burner for quite some time. Luckily, our mechanic presented an option, which is to take the starboard fuel tank, fill it with enough water, and I would recommend a whole bunch of Dawn liquid or soap or something, or cleanser, to get rid of the gas smell. Use that as ballast and just run off the port fuel tank. As I said before, I have fuel cocks in the engine room that allow me to run either engine off either tank. The tank itself is 100 gallons, about 380 liters, which is plenty, and I can find a marina in the Thousand Islands within that range. So that might at least give us a season and really hold off the expense until several months from now. This long weekend, a whole bunch of that work finally happened, in terms of at least draining out the fuel tank. That took a while because the fuel transfer pump was 30 gallons an hour, and when you're looking at a 100-gallon tank, that takes quite some time. But we noticed that the fuel smell did actually diminish. That's not a bad sign. For a lot of this weekend, we were using soapy water and cleanser, pouring it into the bilge, letting it sit, draining out in a bucket. Wash, rinse, repeat. Just keep trying to cleanse the bilge more and more, and kept the windows open. The weather was beautiful. It was hot. But even if it wasn't, I'd rather risk a little bit of water damage than have the fuel build up. We have to air it out. So that was the first part of the process. The pressure test still has to go through, but I'm suspecting with the amount of fuel we may have lost that it's more than just a little bit coming through a gasket. This weekend had beautiful weather. It was hot, and we frantically started on the second part, which is getting the boat ready to get into the water within the next week or two. Part of that was the bottom. The anti-fouling paint was chipped, maybe hadn't been put on a completely clean surface in prior years, and it looked like it was just layer after layer that was put on. I went in with my friend George's 3000 psi pressure washer, which was excellent, and managed to get a lot of the zebra mussels and loose paint off the hull. That was fairly painstaking work, and then scraped more to get more of those zebra mussels off because they are incredibly tenacious and they just love sticking to things. That was one step. Meanwhile, Jacqueline was putting compound onto the hull. We did everything sort of from the water line up to the top rub rail, so that because this is an area we wouldn't be able to get to when the boat's in the water. We just wanted it compounded and waxed so it looks good. And that just helps repel some dirt too. That was hard work. The compound itself, and luckily I had a 10-inch orbital polisher, but that was just like doing shoulder presses all day. But going along with that, wiping off the compound, once all that was done, applying the wax bit by bit, buffing that. But I think the difference is really noticeable, and it's looking a little bit shipshape. As for the bottom and applying anti-fouling paint, I'm hoping we'll be able to get to that this coming weekend. But by the end of yesterday, I think we were both just done. That's 2 days of pretty physical work, and it's called boat yoga for a reason. There's a lot of up and down ladders, and I probably should have done a bit of a stretch beforehand and a cool down after. It was a good workout, and a couple of ibuprofen later, and everything is just fine. But all in all, not a bad weekend to get the boat ready. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do. I still need the battery charger replaced. I mean, I've got the original. It still says Professional Mariner, not Pro Mariner. And at 28 years, it's on its last legs. I've asked the mechanic to get me new batteries because I want to go back to a factory standard. And some of the work that needs to be done in terms of maintenance can only be done when the boat's in the water, largely because of things like cooling systems for the engine, the generator, the air conditioning. But it's getting there, and it doesn't smell like gas, so we won't be sailing a floating bomb, because that's just not good for anybody.
And ultimately, here's where we want to be. Our boat in the water, with our friends, enjoying the Thousand Islands. And it'll happen. If you like what you saw today, click the like button, hit subscribe, send us ideas for more videos, and we'll see you next time.